we saw this, we continue to see this constantly expressed in the media in the West. This isn't really about what Muslims think about freedom of speech. This isn't really about Islam and whether Islam can handle freedom of speech or not. This is about the fact that in the West, freedom of speech isn't offered equally to all communities. Freedom of speech becomes a shield or a rubric under which the majority denies the rights of minorities to the same level of respect in the public space. And I'll just give some examples of this. When the Charlie Hebdo attacks happened a few years ago in Paris, the next day, the days after that, there were all these images of legions of French people standing out, holding up pens saying, "Je suis Charlie," freedom of speech. There were cartoons where, pens were breaking terrorist bullets and terrorist missiles and things like that. Just a few days after that, just a few days after the attack, a French comedian, Dieudonné Mbalabala, was arrested for hate speech and was prevented from performing his comic act because, to quote the French court, his words were going to prove a grave threat to public order. A grave threat to public order. I'll tell you something else that was a grave threat to public order. Charlie Hebdo's cartoons. But were they prevented from publishing? No, absolutely not. But when a Muslim member of a minority is saying things that are considered controversial, then he has to be silenced. And in the weeks after the Charlie Hebdo attacks, over 50 Muslims in France were arrested. 50 French citizens were arrested because they had expressed understanding of why the attacks had taken place. They didn't do anything. They had just expressed their understanding of the motivations of the terrorists. So you see here, right, just as people are out there saying, "Je suis Charlie," freedom of speech, people in their own country, Muslims in their own country, citizens of their own country are being arrested for expression, for only the freedom of expression. An example of this in the United States, which, by the way, has a much stronger rule of law protection for freedom of speech than European countries, thank God, okay? But think about we hear constantly now of Republicans proposing that Muslims coming into the country should be asked to, what are their views on Sharia law? Are they going to denounce Sharia law? Try being a Muslim, which you are, try being a Muslim and saying something positive about Sharia law. Try going out in front of a group of people saying, I embrace Sharia law. Think about the kind of abuse you'll get. Think about the kind of threats that'll put you under in terms of your employment, in terms of your reputation. But if you go online, just Google, does the Constitution overrule the Bible? Just Google that. And you find all these websites of American Christians saying, absolutely not. It's unacceptable for any man-made document to overrule the Bible. Even Ben Carson, the former presidential candidate, now he's going to be the secretary of I don't know what, okay? He was asked on Meet the Press by Chuck Todd about a year and a half ago, does the Constitution overrule the Bible? He said, well, it really depends. It depends certain parts of the Bible, certain parts of the Constitution. Try being a Muslim and getting up there and asking for that amount of time in your explanation about whether the Sharia law overrules the Constitution. So here, think about just this. Freedom of speech isn't just about what you say. It's also your right to remain silent. Freedom of speech is also the freedom not to speak. But we Muslims know that Muslims don't get that right because they're always demanded. It's always demanded of them to condemn this, to condemn that, to speak out against this, speak out against that. I don't even need to tell this audience that. Do white people have to condemn crazy lone gunmen who shoot up schools? Do white people have to condemn racists who shoot up churches in North Carolina? No, they don't. But Muslims, if they don't speak out and condemn things, they're assumed to be supportive of them. So this refusal to deny the same freedom of speech to Muslims is because freedom of speech really functions to protect the majority. Other issues